Welcome back to the first day of the rest of your life. My name is Andy Zaremba, and with me behind the helm today is my brother Mike.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here with you. Happy day, whatever it is. It's Tuesday here. That's when we usually record.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. Well, happy Canadian Thanksgiving.
It's only 1 day late.
It's true. Very true. But, yeah, happy to be here. How you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Pretty tired. A little bit tired today because I woke up really early. I did a 6 a.m. yoga class at Moksha in East Van. It was really
nice.
It was nice. I kind of woke up early, so I'm like, I'm just going to roll to bed and go do some hot yoga, get my sweat on, and
good for you.
Get this old body moving a little bit.
You're not that old.
Oh, it's only a number, right?
True that.
Is that what they say now?
I believe
40
that.
is the new 30.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm 39, so I'm just turning 30,
Wow.
which is awesome.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So I did some yoga this morning, got a lot of work done, work accomplished, and now we're here recording.
Yeah.
I did
Fun
a podcast
stuff.
earlier, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It was an interesting guy from the U.S. It was called what's the name? I can't remember the name of the podcast right now, but he wanted to talk about the church as an entity, and like how it needs to be updated and changed, because he's part of the church, but he doesn't necessarily like how it's going right now. So he wanted to create this. It's called like the Dissemble or Deconstruct podcast or something.
Okay.
So he's like, how can we upgrade like religion? I'm like, that's an interesting question. So I did a whole podcast about that. So that was my day so far. How about yours?
I was doing some just e-work at home and then taking care of my son before coming down here. So,
nice.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, normal day for me. But as per usual, we are podcasting here at a float house at 70 West Cordova Street in downtown Vancouver, BC. And floathouse.ca is our website. And if you have not tried floating or flotation therapy, we might dive into that topic a little bit today, because we do have one of our float ambassadors with us. Mm-hmm. And flotation therapy. If you go on YouTube, search what is floating, after you've listened or watched this podcast, of course, you'll find a nice synopsis, 6-minute video breaking it all down for you, and it does a good job of kind of framing it, what it can be used for, and for both therapeutic reasons and then personal growth reasons as well. So if you want to use the Vancouver Real promo code, Vancouver Real, you'll save 20% off a single float.
Yeah, I haven't floated in about 2 weeks, which is a pretty long stretch for me. But I have adopted basically a daily meditation practice.
Good for you.
And have you heard of Sam Harris?
Yeah.
So he launched this online app, which is really great. He does these guided meditations, and because of that, I've been sort of inspired and motivated to do it regularly. Mm-hmm. And I've meditated now for 15 days straight, which is great. And
cool.
I really like the way he talks about it and describes it. So I've been using that as well. I'm like, I haven't floated, but I've been meditating. But really, a float is kind of like a super meditation in a way.
Totally.
It just changes the whole thing, right?
Well, it'd be cool once you go back to it after this 2-week break.
It's like a boot camp. Well, it's a boot camp of a consistent practice, but not the intensely long practice that I would usually have like on a weekly basis.
Well, I always found when I had my super consistent morning sit practice going that that and the float practice had an amazing synergy application going on. Much with yoga as well, which we'll definitely dive into today.
Plus you get the magnesium. There's magnesium in the float house, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And my teacher, Dr. Christian Northrup, says that most of us are deficient in magnesium.
Yeah,
so
those
it's
are
another way to
very
get that
common one.
magnesium in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I got to get back into my float practice, but been keeping busy though. We got a mindful mass event coming up on October 24th.
Oh.
And it's going to be at the Jack Pool Plaza in front of the Olympic Cauldron there.
Sweet.
Yep.
We do a free meditation, so if you want to join up with that, there's an event on the Mindful Mass Vancouver Meditation Mob Facebook group page, so you can go check that out. And also, if you haven't heard yet, I'm the area director for Man Talks Vancouver. Just took that over. And we have an event coming up on the 22nd. I don't know if this will be out by then, but we are planning another event for November 26th.
Cool.
Which will be called Overcoming Adversity. So that will be definitely a good one.
Very nice.
So lots going on, as usual.
Busy fall.
It's a busy fall, but it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
And speaking of fun, I'm really excited for today's podcast because
we got a fun guy.
we have a real fun guy.
I love fun guy. We should talk about mushrooms too.
Oh, we can talk about that.
Okay,
We'll go there. We can talk about all the healing journeys that we go on.
Awesome.
But
I was just talking about
Blunderfield-
medicinal mushrooms a bit.
Sorry.
But I want to learn. Maybe you guys can teach me about
All
all the different types of mushrooms.
potentially.
Sweet.
We could go there. But anyways, without further ado, Will Blunderfield, welcome to
Hello.
Vancouver Real.
Hi.
Yes.
People
Long
can-
time
Namaste.
coming.
Satnam.
Yeah. People can connect with you at willblunderfield.ca.
Yes.
And you recently launched a podcast as
I
well.
did.
It's called the Bi Urban Yogi podcast.
That's right. Bi as in bisexual, urban yogi.
How many episodes have you done so far?
We've done 23.
Very good.
23 episodes, yes.
Good
We
start.
do one a week, and it's been about 2 months, and I got really excited, so I released like 10, within the first week, and that's
Nice.
really
one
good.
a week since then.
That's
Smart.
Yeah.
Good launch.
Yeah.
And what was the inspiration for that podcast?
Well, I was listening to like podcasts that I really like. I really like the Luke Story podcast. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of him.
haven't
I don't
heard-
know anything about him though. I just see him
He's
online.
kind of like a well-being expert. He tries different nootropics and different wellness products out on himself, different lifestyles, different types of yoga, and he sees how it makes him feel. And also, he used to be an alcoholic and used to be a drug addict, and now he's cleaned up his act. And I kind of got into cocaine for a few years there, and so I'm really inspired by him because he's like living it. He's living it, He's living it. So,
right. I mean, and that's such a well, I can't imagine how hard of a journey that can be. And I'd like to get into your story a little bit
Yeah.
as well. But let's go a little further back
Yeah.
to North Shore Elements,
North Shore.
2008. That was,
I remember that.
This is when I first started yoga, and I just started with hot, like a lot of people. We started
Yeah.
with hot yoga. You were probably like my second or third teacher.
Really?
Yep.
Oh
And
my
I'd go to your
God.
class at North Shore, and it was always awesome, and your energy was always incredible.
Thank
And then
you.
you'd end off the classes with singing half the time.
Yeah.
Or you'd be singing during class. And it was just a lot of fun and a lot of great energy. And
Thanks,
I
man.
really enjoyed it. And
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, you were definitely you're one of my, I would say, one of my intro teachers into the practice of yoga.
Really?
I consider you one of my teachers because like
High five.
there was like
Woo.
a handful of them like I went to consistently.
Yeah.
Yours was one, and Megan Curry's was another.
I love Megan.
And
I
there's
did
a-
my teacher training with her.
Oh, did you?
Like we were both students in the same class. Yeah.
So it's like you were part of my early days of yoga, which was amazing. Which,
Oh, I'm honored.
Which really helped me along in my personal journey.
Nice, man.
But what I'd like to hear about is, how did you get into yoga, and how has it really, benefited your life, and why did you become a teacher?
Yeah. Well, I was going to musical theater school in New York City. Basically, I was on Canadian Idol. I got kicked off. I made it pretty far, but then the Simon Cowell type judge was like, "You're too theatrical. Get out." I was like, "Oh, namaste." I was so upset. So I auditioned for this musical theater school. They were doing, North American auditions. So they came up to the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and there was a little audition room set up. And I won a scholarship. I got a scholarship to the acting school
Wow.
for my singing. I'm not a very good actor, but I can sing okay. And so
You can sing very well.
Thank
yeah,
you.
okay, is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah.
but-
Thank you.
Geez, and not
Thank
just
you.
okay
Appreciate it.
people.
Whoa. So yeah, long story short, I was at the acting school, and one of our teachers, his name was Dolores. His name was Mr. Pearson, but we found out his drag queen name was Dolores.
Oh, funny.
He was like 70 years old. He was very eccentric and funny, and he would teach us yoga before we went on stage, and I started to like that more. And so I was like, you know what? I want to become a yoga teacher.
Why the yoga before going on stage?
He said it would help us become better listeners.
Interesting.
He said that being a good actor is about being a good listener. And he said if we did yoga before in the wings, like right before on stage, that would help us like be really engaged in the moment.
Right. So as a way of dialing you in and making you more present to what you're doing, and that
Yes.
actually translated to acting.
Yes. Yeah, presence. Yeah, it's all about presence, eh?
Well, it translates to everything all
Everything.
the time.
Yeah.
So he
Really?
used yoga as a
You guys have
tool.
really good eye contact, I have to say.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'm like falling in love.
Oxytocin just pouring into your system right now. Oh man, who knows?
I'm gonna write a song about you guys later.
Awesome.
Yeah, my next album.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've gotten a book. Now we're gonna be in a song.
Yay!
Yep. So
Awesome.
I love it.
This is good.
next is a movie, right?
Yeah,
Or
that'd be nice.
Documentary.
You
I don't
guys
know.
should be in a movie.
Yeah, I think so.
It's coming. It's
Yeah.
going to happen.
You guys got
It's
the
out there
looks.
now.
Do you have any connections to movies? Get us.
I
in there.
do. I know
Oh, yeah.
one video documentary guy. So I'll go to a party sometime and sing,
Well, intro us.
and I'll intro you, and it'll be great.
All right.
Awesome.
So okay, back to yoga, acting,
Yes.
and then you're like, you liked yoga better than acting. So
Yeah, well, I just felt I was better at it. Like I could do like the character parts in acting. Like I played a PTSD war veteran, and that was the first time I actually got like an A in acting.
nice.
Yeah, and so I can do like character parts, but I found it hard to just be like normal.
I think acting would be a really hard skill to adopt, to be honest. Like I feel like it's like that and stand-up comedy. I feel like are pretty tough.
Would be challenging, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think singing is tough too. But the thing is, once you know your song, you could like when you have it ingrained and memorized, you could probably just belt it out and you're good with it.
Totally.
But it's like if you're acting, you have to be believable, and if you're stand-up comedy, you have to make people laugh. Like we were talking about that the other day. How difficult is that probably to do? Like
I can imagine
hard.
it'd be super challenging.
Right. I know comics have to take they need a lot of practice before they get good.
Oh yeah.
Get stand up, right?
Oh yeah.
But anyways, the performing arts. You're
the
definitely
performing
part of that.
arts.
And then you made a transition from that into becoming a yoga teacher.
Yes. Yeah. I think I just realized that like I really like to feel good. And I like to be in my body. And so singing is a way to be in my body and feel good and share that energy.
Yeah.
And yoga is as well. And so I realized that my two sort of core passions in life are yoga and music. And then I discovered Wade Morset. He was one of the teachers at the Vancouver School of Yoga. And he has this beautiful yoga music. He's Alanis Morissette's twin brother. And he inspired me to make my own yoga music, because he was taking Sanskrit chants in the choruses and English lyrics in the verses and telling like a beautiful story and then reifying it with these powerful mantras. And I was like, I want to do that. And so I ended up working with his producer, and we made an album in 2010. And then I released it self-released it.
Which album was that?
That was Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like my students like just were so supportive, and they bought it, and I had a lot of my students on the album doing like gang vocals and choral stuff.
Nice.
And then a year later I shopped it to Network Records, and they picked it up and then released it internationally, which is super exciting. Lululemon did the album launch. We like stopped traffic on Robson Street, and police came and tried to shut it down. It was really fun.
Oh, you actually didn't get permits. You just did it.
We just did it. Like the Lululemon set up like a stage, and we had like backup dancers. And
I'm surprised Lululemon would do that, because they seem pretty by the book.
Well, they used to not be. Like they used to have it. They had like an ad in the paper when that store first opened. The original Robson store was like the first 100 people who show up naked get a free outfit.
Wow.
Yeah, so they would do crazy, fun, weird things like that.
I like it. I like the guerrilla marketing tactics for sure. I think it's super creative, but like it's surprising for a corporation like that.
Yes,
because usually they're way more conservative.
I don't know if they would do that anymore though.
Yeah, that was probably
they might not have been public at that time.
I think that's what it was, because I think I heard when they
and they're like, if we get sued or we get a fine, we can pay for it. Right?
Yeah. It was cool though, and I don't think they expected that many people, but it was a spectacle. Like I had tons of makeup on, and there were these beautiful dancers.
In fact, there's a photo of you online I saw of that. But yes, sorry, it's online. You guys can
I think
find
it's
it
online somewhere.
Yeah,
but
really cool.
Yeah,
that must have been pretty wild.
It was so crazy.
You know, I like stuff like that, but I feel like you're walking a razor's edge. Like, see, if we tried something like that with Float House, we get a fine, and we'd be like, all right, we're shutting our doors now.
Well, we almost got shut down, but then I was like, cops, like, do you know Hallelujah? Sing Hallelujah with us. And then we sang Hallelujah, and they calmed down.
Whoa.
And they let us continue, and we were just okay, like make sure you keep people off the street, understandably.
Whoa.
So like the power of music to bring people together. They let us continue for like another hour into the night.
Did the city give you or did they give Lululemon a fine or anything like that, or they?
I don't believe so. I think it was
very
good.
tolerant of the city.
Yeah,
good job.
It was very nice. Yeah.
Seems like they've tightened up since then.
I think so. Maybe that was pre-riot.
Yes, probably was
pre-riot, right?
Yeah.
Because like they changed that rule with the park board. Like, remember somebody was offering yoga in the park for a while at Dude Chilling Park.
They're not doing that anymore?
Well, they got threatened to be fined by the park board.
Oh no!
If they continued.
So you're not technically legally allowed to teach public.
You're not allowed to.
Not without a permit.
You have to
need
have permits for anything like that now.
Yeah.
That's when we do our mindful mass events. I always get a permit.
Oh, that's
so
smart.
It's usually a private space, or if it's a park, I go to the park board, and usually they're quite accommodating. So don't worry, park board, if you're listening to this by chance, you guys have been really accommodating. So thank you.
Yes.
A lot of red tape, but still accommodating.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yay.
But So no fine. You
No
had this
fine.
big public display.
Yeah.
And that helped you get your name out there.
Display.
Right?
Sounds like George Michael or something.
I don't know what to call
The
it.
cop came up to me. He said, "Can I see your Google?" And I said, "No. It's in my pants and it's staying there."
Awesome.
Yeah, and so long. Oh, I have to say something. I was just up at the new library rooftop gardens, and I think that would be a really cool place to lead a mindful mass / yoga event.
Noted.
Yeah.
I think I will do that because
beautiful
we're looking for
balconies.
venues all the time, and they'd probably be down for that.
Sweet man, do it.
Nice job.
Good call. Thank
Yeah,
you.
cheers.
I'm always looking for venues. Nice. And I should go check that out either way.
It's gorgeous.
Cool.
It's very nice.
So,
But yeah.
so moving along with your career. So you launched your albums. You're teaching yoga. This is what, 2010?
Yeah, 2011 is when I got the record deal with Network, and they released it internationally, and it started to do well in Japan.
Yeah, I remember
And-
this. And I've always been
yeah.
curious
Yes.
about the Japan story.
I don't understand why it did well. I told my dad when I
Big in
was
Japan.
like 14, I was like, "Dad, I want to be a pop star in Japan." He's like, "Okay, good luck." He's like, "Whatever. Like, how are you gonna make that happen?" But I just started going over there because I used to lifeguard there in 2006. With my brother, we lifeguarded at the Tokyo American Club in the party district. Basically, we were just like partying all night and then lifeguarding all day. It was fun. And so basically, I just kept going from like 2010 to 2015. I went like 8 or 9 times, and just teaching tons of yoga classes and singing in corpse pose and shavasana at the end of each class, selling my records at yoga studios. There was a hot yoga studio chain there called Lava Yoga,
Oh, nice.
and they have hot yoga studios all throughout Japan, like hundreds. So
Oh,
we
wow,
got to deal
they're
with them.
huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were just teaching all these hot yoga classes and selling the music. And then I got invited to sing at the International Happiness Festival, which was it was in Tokyo at a sumo wrestling dome.
Whoa.
Wow.
So there were like 8,000 people in the audience, and
Any sumo wrestlers?
no sumo wrestlers.
Did you do any
that I
sumo
could
wrestling?
see. No, just like cute, like geishas. There were a lot of geishas, like
Oh.
not geishas, but a lot of beautiful women dressed in kimonos with like the white face paint and
Wow.
everything.
They look like geishas.
They did look like geishas.
That's
Right.
cool.
Yeah, it was super, super cool. So a lot of amazing experiences. Usually I'd either perform with myself, a grand piano on a stage. We rented out theaters, and then we had Akira Watamoto, who's a well-known yoga teacher with Yoga Journal there. And so he would teach chair yoga as I sang.
Chair yoga.
Chair yoga. So people would be like, yeah, it was almost like Kundalini moves and stuff.
Okay. So is it for
Yeah.
people who aren't as mobile,
No,
possibly, or
it's only works in Japan. In Japan, they like fusion things and like unique kind of quirky things, and so young, old, able, disabled, all types of people were in the theater doing chair yoga.
Huh.
As I sang. So that was sort of one structure. And then another structure is we would do performances where I had female backup dancers doing sort of yoga poses, basically like hot yoga poses, like dancers pose and stuff, and warrior poses as I sang. So
Awesome.
that was kind of what we did over there, and it was really fun.
You were rocking out in Japan.
Rocking
for a while.
out in Japan.
Yeah, how long was that for?
That was like basically from 2010 to 2015.
Okay.
We were there like 9 times, and some of the tours lasted for like a week, and other ones were like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just, hit up all the major cities, and then I would do I did a retreat in Okinawa, which is kind of the beautiful tropical part of Japan.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was amazing. Everywhere from Okinawa all the way up to Fukushima.
Sounds like fun times.
Yeah, and then I got to be on a TV show, and I exposed my ass, and then my album sales went up, and I was like, "Yay!"
What?
Yeah.
Oh, so you kind of did a planned wardrobe malfunction.
Well, yeah,
move.
and my manager was very upset. If she's listening to this, I'm so sorry for what I did. But
So
I
you learned that from the crazy Lululemon
I
folks.
know. Maybe that's rubbed off on me or something. But we were at an onsen. They rented out an onsen.
Oh, nice.
And so in the onsen, you get naked. And so I started singing Ari no mama de sora e kaze ni note, which is Frozen in Japanese. And then the spirit moved me, and I turned around and I showed my butt. And then I went on to iTunes a few weeks later. I was like, oh my God, I got 50,000 record sales. It was really nice. Yeah. Because it was primetime TV. And I'm sure it wasn't just because I exposed my butt. I was singing.
But it got attention.
It got attention. They took cameras around for 7 days, and they spliced together the most entertaining parts of what we were doing. It was basically yoga classes, eating Japanese food, going to onsens, exploring the culture, and singing. And they made a 45-minute special. It was called Why Did You Come to Japan? And that really helped with the record sales. And then like I was getting noticed and people were asking for my autograph, and I'd be like meditating in the airport and be like, oh my God, are you that guy? I was like, yes, I'm that guy. He's like, you're funny, you're different. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. Definitely an interesting phenomenon is like to have the Canadian-born yogi singer pop star in Japan. I mean,
it's unique. It's unique, I suppose.
Totally.
It was fun.
Interesting. So, I mean, I'm curious, when did you know? Obviously, like you had this transition from Japan back here, and you did mention that you had this cocaine issue. Like, when did that kind of get started? When did things kind of go a little dark for you, and what happened there?
It was around like 2015. I was teaching a lot of hot yoga, and I was feeling kind of drained, to be honest. And I met this student, and he was like kind of, you know, befriended me, and he's like, let's party, let's go, let's hang out together. And you know, long story short, we were at a party, and he's like, try this, and I tried it, and it made me feel great. And I basically got hooked onto cocaine, which, by the way, in Vancouver is not cocaine, maybe 7 or 8% cocaine, but the rest of it's fentanyl and baby powder and speed.
Whoa.
You know, I that's actually one of the ways I got off of it. Was I was at another party several years later, and this guy who's a friend who had a friend who was a drug dealer, he just randomly started talking about cocaine. And he's like, I used to do cocaine, but I would never do it now. Like in Vancouver, my drug dealer friend went around and got 10 different samples of cocaine, and he could only find about 7 or 8% of cocaine in any given sample. The rest of it was just shit.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, well, I'm not even doing cocaine. Like, cocaine's bad, but that's even worse.
Sure.
Because you don't know what the hell is in there.
Right, it's not even pure.
Yeah, you have no idea what's in there.
Interesting.
So that was one thing that got me to stop. Another thing that got...
Now,
I'd say the two things.
Were you actually addicted to it? Like, would you say... Was it a physiological addiction, or is it more of a psychological addiction, or how would hybrid of the two? How would you classify it if you could?
Slightly more psychological with a little bit of physiological, because when I stopped doing it, I didn't have any major withdrawal. I was probably doing it like 5 times a month.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't like I was doing it every day.
Right.
But like when I did it, I overdid it usually, you know, and there'd often be alcohol involved, and it was just not good. It was not good.
Right. And so was there something that you can look back now and be like, yes, there's definitely some void that I was trying to fill, or how would you relate to the need of, because you said it felt good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I didn't have in place good daily habits that keep me in my highest. And so without that firm bedrock of self-love, basically self-love practices, I let sort of the tide sway me into you know, a patterning that is not my original self and is not serving me. And so, yeah, I got out of it by hearing that story from the drug dealer friend person, and also like that it's not even pure. And then one night I'd done like a particularly large amount of it, and I just like, I felt so bad. And I remember it was like probably 7 a.m, and I just started crying, and I was just like, what am I doing? I'm a yoga teacher and I'm doing this crap. And I'm studying something called German New Medicine, which is basically the premise that no illness can happen in the body without the involvement of the psyche and the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so my mentor for that, her name is Anna Lee, and she has so much love for me. And she was basically mentoring me in this German New Medicine for free. And, you know, she believes in me, and I was just like, I can't believe that I'm like, this woman believes in me so much, and I'm just squandering myself, and I'm not living up to my potential at all. And so I called her, and I just said, you know, Annalie, this is what I've been doing. And she yelled at me in a loving way, and she said, you're supposed to get high in your classes and in your spin classes and through singing in front of lots of people. That's how you get high. And I was like, oh. And I think it was you. It was you, Mike. I was at the wellness event a few years ago, probably around the similar time. And you're like, we need another album from you. Like, you haven't, you know, it's like the world needs to hear your voice. That's the message I got from you. And it kind of irritated me because I was like, well, fuck you. Like, probably because I was on a bit of like a coke rage. I was like, and I was like, well, nah, and that, just hearing that message, put a little seed in me. And I was like, you know what? I need to clean up my act. And I just really am grateful for Anna Lee, because if she was not in my life, I probably would be dead, because I would have probably overdosed on fentanyl. My cousin overdosed on, he was doing recreational cocaine. I didn't even know he did cocaine. He was a songwriter too, and he left behind a young daughter, 3-year-old daughter. Wow. He just got a bad batch, and then the guy that I was dating passed away of a fentanyl poisoning about 1.5 years ago.
Wow.
And so it really is an epidemic in our city. I don't know how it is in other cities, but I know for sure.
I think it's pretty bad all around North America. I think
it?
It's a pretty common issue now. It's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, long story short, I went to see a psychic. And I don't normally believe in psychics, but I heard she was really good. And she said, you need to do Kundalini yoga. And I was like, oh, what's that? Like, I'd done Gloria's class at Semper Viva. And I was like, is that like where you like jump around and it's fun?
Right.
And she's like, go do Kundalini yoga. So I went to Yoga West, which is in Kits, and that's like the home of Kundalini yoga. That's where Gloria trained. And I love Gloria. I've taught with her in Japan, and I love her. And I was like, I want to know where she went. So she went to Yoga West. So I signed up for the teacher training, because the first day I went in there, I took a class and I started crying. I had this huge emotional release in the class, and it was so powerful. And so I signed up for the training right away, and I took the training and I learned all the different technologies of Kundalini yoga, like even like wearing white.
Right. There's something about that. Let's back it up a little bit, because I'm very ignorant to Kundalini yoga.
Okay.
Can you maybe give us a little bit of background or theory behind it, and then maybe talk about some of the practices?
Sure. Yeah. Kundalini yoga it's one of the oldest forms of yoga, and it was kept hidden from the masses in India because it's so powerful, and it makes you feel really good, and it makes you love yourself, and it strengthens your navel point. Some people say, oh, isn't Kundalini yoga dangerous? And Yogi Bhajan said, yes, it's very dangerous. It makes it so that people who are trying to control the way you think about yourself can't do that anymore. And the way that you think about the world can't do that anymore. So it's very dangerous, because it makes you feel a little bit more blissful, a little bit more bountiful, a little bit more beautiful, more free. And so anyway, Kundalini yoga is basically was brought to the West by Yogi Bhajan in 1969. He landed in Toronto, and then he saw all these hippies in Toronto and in Los Angeles doing cocaine and doing crystal meth and doing all these different drugs in a very excessive way. And he's like, oh, these people are like me and the Sikhs in northern India. They want to expand their minds, but they're doing it in a way that maybe isn't the most sustainable. And so he decided to make Kundalini yoga public. And the myth is, or the legend is, whoever made Kundalini yoga public would die within a year, because it was meant to be kept secret. That's what it said in the scriptures. And so about a year later, Yogi Bhajan got extremely ill, but he did not die. And he's like, I knew that was not true. So thank you to Yogi Bhajan for making it public, because it's a really powerful type of yoga. And I wanted to learn it the right way. That's why I went to Yoga West, because it's like a really intense 8-month training. I want to make sure I was doing it right, so I didn't, hurt anybody.
Like, I've done a few workshops and a few classes of Kundalini, and I regularly practice like a form of hatha yoga for the most part of my yoga journey so far. But Kundalini is very, very different. It's not really the same hatha movements at all. It involves a lot of pranayama.
We could do one
chanting
together right now for like a minute. Do you want to?
Yeah,
do one.
Let's do it. We're doing a minute.
So before you tune in, before you do any Kundalini thing, you honor like the rishis and the sages who brought this to us. So we can just say Ong Namo Guru Dev Namo. It's just tapping into your heart's wisdom 3 times. So Ong Namo Guru Dev Namo. 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 And so this is called breath of fire, also known as ego eradicator. And I don't believe, I think we need a little bit of ego in this life to be able to survive, but it kind of puts the ego in its right place. Guru Singh, who's one of Yogi Bhajan's disciples, says that the ego is like the glue that keeps the soul in the body. So you need a little bit of it. So this kind of makes your heart, the electromagnetic field of your heart, a little brighter, a little bigger. So then your ego feels safe. It's like, okay, the heart's leading. Yeah. So you curl your fingers like this. Because I think ego really is just fear, right? So this lessens fear and amplifies love. So you're going to bring your arms to 60 degrees and then focus energetically above the crown of your head. And keeping the arms nice straight at 60 degrees, you're going to begin to pump your navel point in. So that's just below the belly button. And we can do it through the mouth first. It's kind of like a Darth Vader breath. So it's like, but traditionally we do it through the nose. So let's try it through the nose. We'll do it for like 30 seconds to a minute. Inhale. Begin. Keep going. As you inhale, think Sat. Exhale, Nam. Sat means truth. Nam means name. Sat Nam, 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 Sat Nam. Truth is your identity. Inhale. Bring your thumbs together and stretch your fingers up. Hold your breath. Squeeze the rectum, sex organ, navel point. Hold the breath. Gaze up into the third eye. Squeeze the pelvic floor, encouraging the energy to travel upwards. Touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth and then slowly bring your hands down, sweeping your electromagnetic field. Smile. Yeah, so that's breath of fire. Kind of like Wim Hof. There's a lot of sort of Wim Hof commonalities I find between Kundalini yoga and the Iceman.
That's really interesting. How long do you typically do that for?
You could do it for anywhere from like 3 minutes to 31 minutes.
And you just go.
You just go.
Keep doing that.
Yeah.
What's the name of the breath or the word again?
Sat Nam. So SAT.
Yeah.
NAM. And
it means truth.
Truth, name. So truth is my name.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know,
It's
really
like
strange.
purifying the mind through the mantra, purifying the body through the pranayama and the asana.
It's like, remember what Nemo was talking about a little bit on the last podcast? He was talking about.
Was Nemo on that?
Yeah.
Nemo
Dr.
Romney?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in the men's group I'm in.
Oh, he was just on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
We
cute.
released
Yay.
this episode today. But he was talking about having a top-down and a bottom-up approach to, like, I guess, healing and awareness or something.
We both
And
work
that's
with
what
the
it
same breath
really-
guy, yeah.
That's what really kind of that reminded me of. And the other thing it reminded me of, there's this guy named Paul Selig, who is he's a channeler. Have
I
you
love
heard of
him. Yeah, he's great.
He's sort of on the rise right now, thanks to I think Aubrey Marcus. But he always talks about how you want to say these certain words that tune you into your highest self, basically.
Yes.
And one of them is like, I am truth, and it's like I am word, I am word, I am word. And apparently, when you say those words, it aligns you with your highest self.
I am word.
And I am word, but it was very similar to this idea of
Satnam.
truth and name.
Yeah.
And but what does name stand for though? Like, is it just the word name?
Yeah, it's meant
Like-
to be sort of
Like
esoteric. So
my
it
name is
means-
truth. Like I am
Yeah,
truth.
I am truth.
Right.
That's what Paul Selig says. It's like
Right.
I am truth. I know what I am in truth. I know who I am in truth, and I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free.
Right. So it's a very similar theme. And the funny thing is, like, it just kind of struck me right now because I'm listening to this guy speak a lot right now, and then you come in and like, do this technique, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on with this whole thing?
There's
Yeah.
stuff going on. That's for
There's
sure,
stuff going
man.
on.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. So Kundalini. I want to dive into it even more. So
Yeah.
the whole, from my understanding, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but like not the whole thing, but we have a lot of energy from our root chakra and
Yeah.
our sexual organs, and the whole thing is to like start to.
if we're connected to it in the first place.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are disconnected from it in our culture.
So I guess the first step would be to
Connect to it.
make that connection, and then we want to start to work that Kundalini energy up the spine and into
To nurture the higher glands.
higher chakras.
And I like to bring it right up. I was actually at a talk with Guru Singh, who is the first guy who learned from Yogi Bhajan. He was talking about the microcosmic orbit. So
Right.
bringing
Yes.
it up and then coming back down.
Yeah, I've
And
learned that technique.
and a lot of Kundalini people say, oh,
Tantra.
it's just up, up, up. But I thought it was really cool that Guru Singh mentioned that, yeah, come back down. Bring it back down to earth.
That's what I read a
Back
book.
down into your navel point. To be
Mantak
stored.
Shia.
I love him.
Yeah, so he does that. Like, so you
Multi-orgasmic man.
And then, yes, exactly. That's what
Yeah, I love
where I
that.
learned it.
It's
yeah.
the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
It's great.
So, okay. And the crazy thing about all this stuff is that, like, Andy and I, we've done a lot of plant medicine work, you know?
Cool.
And so the energetic work that you experience viscerally during plant medicine ceremonies like ayahuasca, and especially ayahuasca, I find, you start to experience these exact same energetic sensations and these openings and stuff like that. And this is where it's like you get that universality effect happening where, so this discipline of practice is doing it, this shamanic tradition is experiencing this. You start to see all these crossing overs.
Yeah.
It's like there could be some truth there.
Yeah.
You know
And
what I mean?
they're all leading to the same
That's really
place
cool.
essentially, but it's like different
Just
avenues.
different ways to
Yes.
cross the river, to cross this world ocean.
Right.
Yeah. I think plant medicines are great. I don't know much about them. I've had some bad experiences because I didn't do it right.
Right.
So,
Well,
you
yeah.
know,
I
I want to learn from you guys.
Well, the
too.
fact that you're moving the energy the way that you are with Kundalini, I mean,
That could be your medicine.
Exactly.
Might not
It is
be-
really crazy because the different kriyas, I've had these psychedelic experiences of connecting to my higher self, feeling so amazing.
what is a kriya? Just let's back up a little bit.
Kriya is a series of postures designed to give you a certain effect.
Cool. And
Yeah.
how many kriyas are there?
There's over 8,000. Yogi Bhajan taught 8,000 different kriyas.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What would you say? What is the main reason people come to Kundalini, and why? What's the end goal, if there's a goal? What would you say? Like, what is the result that a lot of people experience from Kundalini?
To become more loving, become more aware. They call it the yoga of awareness. To learn how to manage your energy so that you can get high on your own supply. You know, like now that I've been on both sides of the tracks and I did the cocaine thing and now I'm doing this, it's like, wow, if I just like get to bed on time and eat lots of green things, like organic green things, and take care of myself and surround myself with people who are in their gifts and do some Kundalini yoga, I can kind of feel like I'm high all the time.
Right.
So it's that sort of thing. It's empowerment. Wow, I can feel the way I most want to feel just by doing these certain things with my body and my breath. That's amazing.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see
what-
how, like, okay, good.
I was going to say, what has been the biggest changes that you've seen personally from taking it on?
I feel like I'm a little more in my heart than I used to be. I'm still working on it. I get up really early now. I never thought I would. I do like yoga at like 5 a.m. for 2.5 hours.
Right. They do it really early, right?
Really early, like
Yeah.
traditionally between 4 and 6:30, it's the Amrit Vela and the sun's at a certain position, which make it in relation to the earth, which makes it easier to meditate. I think also just people are mostly sleeping at that time, so the air is clear. It's more easy to formulate be your own original self without all the thought forms.
You know what's interesting about, not to interrupt your story,
No,
but
yeah.
I do like a little writing practice just to practice writing.
Nice.
And usually, I'll write. I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. sometimes,
Cool.
and I'll write till like 6, and that's when it flows out way
That's
easier
awesome.
than during the day when I'm sort of in my day. I wake up and I start just typing on the keyboard, and the stuff just flows out.
Wow.
It's really interesting. But
Yeah.
who knows?
And it's
Something
not
about
just
that hour, right?
Yeah, it's not just the Kundalini yogis. Many different cultures get up around
That's
that
right.
time, right? Like even the Buddhists and stuff.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Vipassana meditation talks about that too. Like that, dawn and dusk roughly is what they say, just because like it's a shifting energy and it's just things are a little, it's just easier to settle. And when I was doing my Vipassana, I totally felt that difference as well. It's like my best sits were kind of during those transition phases of the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Carlos Du Leon, a guy we had in the podcast, he's what would you call Carlos? I don't know what he is.
I don't even know what
he's
he
a
is.
psychologist / shaman. If
Cool.
you want to call him that.
Yeah.
But he says, the best time to do mushrooms of the magical variety would be actually at sunset. He's like, take
Oh.
them at sunset.
Right.
He's like that for whatever reason. So
That's
who
a good
knows?
time.
There's these weird energetic properties of the different times of the day that are
Yeah.
significant for whatever reason. So
That's really
So
interesting.
you wake up in the morning, you do your meditation.
Yeah, and then I take a shitload of mushrooms.
Like reishi?
Reishi, chaga, cordyceps, with a tiny little bit of psilocybin. No, I don't. But I've been thinking about it. I want to actually learn how to do that. Because the problem with me is if I take psilocybin, I get really lovey-dovey. Like if I was on psilocybin right now, I'd crawl across the table and try to make out with you. Right?
That, or you might throw up in a ball and cry for a while.
Maybe, either or. Maybe both. I don't know.
Maybe
you
both.
just don't know what would happen.
Possible.
So
yeah, well, that whole thing is, they are illegal. So there's no place you can really go and get a mushroom facilitated journeys. There are people that do that.
I met and I had two guys. Do you know Gary? What's his last name? Gary and his husband. They do it on Salt Spring Island. I had them on my podcast last week.
Oh, cool.
And they were telling me about it.
Allegedly, they do it on Salt Spring Island.
Yeah. And it seemed like really the way they were talking. I was like, this is really cool. Like, I want to try this. I definitely want to try it. And I feel like they would be good. Gary and Rob.
Setting is everything.
Yeah.
Having the correct intention into it, and then setting yourself up for success with a ritual and ceremonial approach.
Yeah.
That's how you nail it. And then recognizing a bad trip is actually just energy that needs to be shifted, and if you're resisting that and you're like, I don't want to feel this, well, you need to feel this. This is why it's happening.
Yes.
And that's just letting it happen, even if it is uncomfortable. It's like allowing actually seems to start to dissipate the discomfort.
I felt like I was leaving my body when I did mushrooms once. Is that, do you just let that happen?
Ideally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done.
There are
like,
some bad trips that are like, okay, they're disturbing and you're not enjoying them because you have to like look at all of the demons inside of you and all the snakes in your heart and everything's just exposed.
The shadow.
You look at your shadow side and that all gets shown to you.
There's kriyas for that in Kundalini yoga.
Interesting.
No doubt.
There's kriyas where you rebirth yourself.
Right.
I did that a few weeks ago and I just was bawling like a baby, but it was good. It felt like I was releasing something.
Shedding a skin.
Yeah. So it's cool through the breathing techniques and Kundalini yoga, through mushrooms, there's so many different ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say don't do Kundalini yoga and mushrooms at the same time.
Not unless you're very experienced in both.
Fuck you up.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was something to keeping the pure lineages. Like
Yogi Bhajan was very anti-drug of any sort. He just was really, and I think that's because he saw all these hippies abusing drugs.
Right.
So he's just like, stop it.
It's like how is it being used? It's in a ceremonial context, or is it just being used for a party or whatever, right?
And different people respond in different ways.
True that.
Yeah.
And so
Gabor Mate, who I've done some work with, he believes in both.
Right.
He talks a lot about mushroom journeys for healing. He's done them himself. And then he also works with us Kundalini yogis to do his Beyond Addiction program.
Yeah. No
So
doubt.
it's cool that he embraces both.
How does he
I think it's
integrate
good.
the Kundalini into his Beyond Addiction? Do you know much about that? Or?
Well, he has a program that he does with a senior Kundalini yoga teacher. And he also does, so he trains people, healthcare workers, people who have addiction, everybody who wants to come. He works with this Kundalini yoga teacher, and she provides technologies of Kundalini yoga to help you deal. Like if you're about to have a craving, what do you do? If you feel like you're about to drink alcohol and that's not the best thing for you, like what can you do? Breath of fire, and then he also does these events called Compassionate Inquiry.
I've been hearing about these lately.
Super fun. I was lucky enough to, I got to sing at his event. I sang to open the event, and then I got to partake. I was the mic runner, so I was running around giving mics.
Nice.
And he kind of fuses it in. He basically brings people up from the audience, and they talk about their problems, and he demonstrates how to hold space. And then, so that's part of it. And then the senior Kundalini yoga teacher will come and do kriyas and breathing exercises, sort of reifying or showing ways to help the patient in other ways besides just talk therapy. So I think he just wants to show that there's like different ways to,
right.
It's not all just talking, like there's other ways to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to check out one of these Compassionate Inquiry courses. It sounds like he's running are they like seminars then?
Yeah, they're like 2-day seminars.
Cool.
And across the country and in the States. And I really loved it.
Well, I think what you kind of tapped into there is super important. Just like there's so many different types of therapies and different things can be used synergistically in different ways, as long as it's like intelligently done as well. Like you said, like talk therapy is good for one element of it, but then there needs to be the body element and the somatic experience and then the energetic experience. And then ideally, I think like a holistic spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Kind of like there, the more I personally kind of learn and understand about myself and the nature of reality is that there is no separation. And so you need to kind of start to work with all these different dimensions of yourself. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if you're ignoring something, it usually will, well, that's where the work needs to be done.
Stress
right?
comes, yeah.
Yeah, or something will come out of that.
I just did a Vipassana, it's called mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Okay, yeah.
And it's kind of like Vipassana Western style.
Yeah.
And
is it like a 10-day thing or?
No, well, the one I did was 6 days.
Cool.
But we learned about like stress, and it's like, so when you're about to like go down your habitual way of reacting to stress, it's like, what thoughts are you thinking? What emotions are you feeling? What body sensations are you experiencing? And what do you normally do behavior-wise? And just like taking that little pause, it's like, okay, how am I feeling? And like coming into the body, I find I've been practicing that. It's really helpful.
And so I guess you have to recognize like an emotion or stress or negative feelings come up.
Yeah.
And then when you recognize that, what do you do from there?
Well, in MBSR, you just be with it and you don't judge it. So whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, you just be with it. You know, and that can work sometimes. So as you said, there's so many different ways of healing. So I kind of like combining Kundalini yoga with MBSR, with Vipassana. And I know like at the 10-day retreat in Merritt, like some of my Kundalini yoga teacher friends have been turned away because they're like, oh, you teach Kundalini? No, you're not welcome here.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
it's very
interesting.
black and white at certain places. Whereas my first Vipassana teacher, Whit Hornsberger, he's like, no, like embrace both. And I did that at the Hermitage on Denman Island, and they had like a Kundalini symbol and like a Buddhist symbol and all these different
That's
things.
really strange.
Yeah, can
Why
we
would
tap
they-
into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, what,
Yeah.
like, do people have a fear around Kundalini because they perceive it as being cult-like or something?
I think
is
it's-
it a cult? Like, what would you think about that? And I mean, cult doesn't have the bad thing. A sports team is a cult. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think it's not a cult. I think they're just technologies that make people stand out and look like a cult. Especially if you like watch like Wild Wild Country on Netflix with like Osho's people, and they were all
Right.
dressed in maroon, and they kind of sensationalized it. So then see all these people dressed in white. Who are these Kundalini yogis?
Right.
But I mean, it's like white. It's a smart thing to do. It expands your aura, makes it a little bit easier to be yourself.
So is that
Right?
okay? So that's the reason Kundalinis wear white.
Yeah, and natural fibers also help versus like polyester.
So
They recommend that you wear like natural fibers, and then covering the head. Like there's 26 bones that make up the skull. So when you put a turban on, it just keeps everything in place, which makes it easier to meditate. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So now why? So this group wouldn't let Kundalini teachers in.
Yeah, they
So the
wouldn't.
mindfulness-based stress reduction people.
They would.
No, the Vipassana and
Oh,
Merit.
I'm
Oh, the
conflating the
Vipassana.
two. Yeah. So the first
Sorry, okay,
Vipassana
sorry.
I did
Okay.
was in Denman Island. They welcome Kundalini yogis, but the one in Merritt does not. Like my friend Mahan Khalsa went, and they're like, you need to choose between. She was on my podcast. She explained this. She's like, they're like, you need to. We found out that you teach Kundalini yoga. This is not acceptable. You snuck in. You need to choose by the end of this retreat if you're going to go the Kundalini way or the Vipassana way. It's one or the other. And she was like, what? You're giving me an ultimatum? I have to choose one? And I'm kind of thinking, it's like,
That sounds very strange.
it's very weird. And I looked it up online, and it's actually a thing. Like people who do Kundalini yoga generally aren't welcome at Vipassana retreats. And I think I can see that there's a difference. Like in Kundalini, you're doing all these special movements and chants to affect a certain state and change of your state. Whereas in Vipassana, you're being encouraged to just be with what is and just sit.
Yes.
And I think you need both skills in
Totally.
this
They're
modern
very
society.
different.
I,
They're very
I love
different.
the idea of the state change, but I also love the idea of just watching everything happen.
Well,
right?
and by doing that, you know what? Your state changes as well.
Yes.
When you go in the deep Vipassana zone, like it's a very interesting
it's just
experience.
so weird that this sort of
Divisiveness.
Yeah.
divisiveness,
It's
very-
like
collectivism.
It's like this.
Yeah, it's very
the
Piscean.
dogmas of these various practices are now interfering with people, and it's weird. You could see why why there's so many rifts in just religions or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
these are very. I mean, like, oh, you do Kundalini, you can't meditate with us. Like, what?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
so
I could-
weird.
I could-
Zero sense.
Totally see them
I'm-
at the
now-
Vipassana saying like, I want you to only practice Vipassana while you're here. Get this
Yeah, and
legit,
that's totally
clean
cool.
sample, and because they say like, don't read, don't write, don't listen to music, like
Yeah.
all these things, so that you can actually tap into the technique.
Yeah.
Totally get that, but that weird ultimatum
Once
is
you
very
have to
bizarre.
choose one or the other.
I
I
guess
think
if I was
Yeah.
going to sort of steel man that argument, instead of straw man it and steel man it, maybe it's because, again, like you were just alluding to, they want you to dive into their practice fully so you can experience the full path and full benefits of the way that they know how to do it.
Yes.
That would be the only legit reason I could maybe think of it.
But
like that.
We're not living in a monastery.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you look at people who just meditate, usually their muscles atrophy. They're very thin and very frail, and they might be very calm and spiritually developed, but their bodies are not that developed. So like
They're not
Kundalini
worldly.
They're not worldly. So Kundalini yoga, and that's not a bad thing. But like I can only speak from my experience, like Kundalini yoga helps you actually strengthen your body, your physical apparatus, your nervous system,
Your lungs.
so that you have, and your lungs, et cetera, so that you can have a robust body to function in this world. Because like there's so much stress out there, right? So I like that Kundalini yoga for that.
And there's work to be done.
There's work to be
like
done.
You have to move things. You got to lift things.
Yeah.
You got to cook and clean and eat and
So if you're just sitting
catch
on a
food
cushion
or-
all day, or just doing, the mindful walking all day, are you going to be able to cultivate the physical apparatus that you need to thrive in this world?
yeah, yin and yang.
Yeah. So I think you need both.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why
So
you can't do both.
now,
But I guess, so if you're a Kundalini, if you want to do Kundalini, you can't tell the...
Don't tell the Vipassana
piece
people;
about
they
it.
won't let you in.
there you go.
So
right.
that's a nish-nash.
Tips from Will. So I got a question. So in terms, people who are listening, if you actually do want to check out the YouTube, Will is wearing his Kundalini attire. Now, do you wear this all the time, or what's your kind of personal relationship with the garments?
Well, I'm teaching a Kundalini class after this interview.
Okay.
So I'm definitely wearing it for that reason. Sometimes I wear it when I feel like I want to feel safe. It makes me feel safe. And for this interview, I was like, yeah, I want to. It makes me feel more like my original self. So I don't wear it all the time, but I do wear it a lot. It does trigger people, though.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, actually, I was performing at Gabor's event. This lady came up to me after my performance because I was wearing the turban as I was playing the piano. She's like, "Can I talk to you for a sec?" And I was like, "Sure." She's like, "Do you pray every night? Do you pray to Allah?" And like, she's like going on all this Muslim stuff. And I was like, "Wait a sec, this isn't Muslim. This is from the Sikh tradition. And I'm a Kundalini yoga practitioner. I just finished my 8-month training. This is a technology." And I explained it to her and she wasn't getting it. And she just kept freaking out at me. And so I just stopped and I smiled and I was like, "I'm Will." And I reached out my hand and then she laughed and we had a certain rapport. But that's happened a few times.
Well, that's really interesting it's really great that you were able to mitigate that and flip it around and change that negative interaction, right? But I think that speaks to a little bit w's going on when I say like the the cultural appropriation people. I think there's a lot of people that are very...
My best friend actually told me, he's like, "Do you see why she did that? She thinks that because she was African Canadian, she probably thinks that you're this white dude wearing this turban, just bastardizing other people's cultures."
Right.
And I totally see that.
So I think, I see why she might think that, but at the same time, that's not the reason you're doing it. So it's not fair for them to make that assumption just because they see what you're wearing something. And
right.
It's a cloth. You know what I mean?
Cloth on my head.
It's like people, it's a white cloth and it's wrapped like a turban, but it's like...
And it's from India. It's authentic. Feels really good.
It's like who says who can wear what cloth on your head?
It's true.
Yeah,
that's
true.
That's the thing. It's like it's a very strange. I get the sensitivity around it. Like I understand that part too. But it's like because like again, she came up to you with completely wrong assumptions and potentially was going to have a really bad interaction with you based on incorrect information.
Yeah. And another fellow came up to me too. Same performance. Even my dad, he was just like, why are you wearing that? And I had to explain it to him. And long story short, I think that as long as I'm comfortable with my decision to wear it, that's all that really matters. And if I'm slightly insecure about it, I do attract more criticism. So I've noticed that the yogis say the outer world is a reflection of the inner.
Whoa.
Okay, that point right there has been tripping me out lately.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like just in my own life, I would say. Just when and this sounds weird, but the more I accept myself, like the more I feel like the world and people are accepting me in a weird way. But that's what I've been.
That's what I've been noticing too.
Maybe it's just what I'm seeing in my own perception because I've changed my own internal viewpoint.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is actually something
Either
happening.
Either way.
But I do notice I'm like, the more I'm like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm about.
Yeah.
And the more I'm good with that, the more people are good with me. It's
Yes.
so weird.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yogi Bhajan said that in 2011 we switched from the Piscean era to the Aquarian age, and like Kali Yuga was the Piscean era. It was all about like the suppression of the divine feminine. And
Is that over now, the Kali Yuga?
it's over.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Right.
Now it's about gentleness and kindness and self-compassion, and whether you're a male or female or transgendered, we all have that divine mother. So it's about honoring her finally. And
I think it's coming out. Like, I mean,
yeah,
it's so true.
we were talking off air about how you feel more like in
Yeah.
your feminine too.
Totally.
And
I feel like,
yeah.
especially like having a daughter and like having a child, like just like I'm like nurture
That's
nurture
awesome.
a city. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
However, I do give her like the masculine side as well, because
Yeah,
she
it's a
needs that
balance.
as well. She needs the the penetrating nature of the masculine to go
Yeah.
out into the world and do things, right?
Totally.
So
So
yeah,
yeah, you need both.
everyone needs both.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's this kind of becoming more aware of these like archetypal and energetic forces that, I mean, the more I learn about them and try to pay attention in my own field of awareness to understand them and to like, yeah, does this actually make sense and is it happening in my life? The more it gets reaffirmed back. So it's just like, however you want to try to break it down theoretically, it doesn't really matter. It's like, is it working?
Right. Wisdom is what works.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool synchronicities that happened to me for this podcast. Like
Really?
there's a lot of like interesting moments, and I'm not sure what it
Cool.
was exactly, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you've been one of my teachers for a long time, so
Aw.
maybe some
Well,
of that
and I'm
spilled out
curious,
again today.
I love you.
Have you been able to, since you've kind of gone through this, Kundalini transformation for yourself, have you been back into the float tank since then?
I have.
Okay.
I
Has
have.
that shifted at all for you in any way?
Yes, I would say that the biggest shift has happened from the mindfulness-based stress reduction, the Vipassana side, actually, of the body scan. So, sometimes after an intense Kundalini Kriya, or even just after an intense day, sometimes it's hard to get Kundalini Kriyas and meditations. It's like a ball bouncing. That just takes a while for the ball to finally stop bouncing. And so I find that adding the Vipassana in during the Shavasana or during the float is really beneficial, because it's like, okay, I'm bringing my awareness to my core. Okay, rising, falling. Okay, now I'm going to bring my awareness down to my left big toe. And I'm going to feel the space between my toes. And so that whole thing, and like just doing that for like 35 minutes makes the transition from crazy daily life into a more alpha brainwave chill state.
Really? So
Right.
it's super
So-
calming then?
Yeah, so I find that it's actually the Vipassana that's really helped me with my floats.
Interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense because the
Yeah.
floats are very just like still,
Very still,
right?
super still.
Cool.
But if you do Kundalini, you can still come float too. We
Yeah,
welcome
if you
all.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
They let me in. They let me in here.
We welcome everybody. The float tank does not discriminate.
That's awesome.
Unless
That
it's
should be a
claustrophobic.
shirt. That should be a
That make a shirt and
hashtag.
I'll
The
wear it
float
around.
tank does not discriminate. That would go viral.
That's a good
fantastic. Let's do it. Yeah.
one. It's true though.
That's
Yeah.
It is
awesome.
true.
Because all it is, it's just a technology that basically isolates you to be with yourself. I
Yeah.
described it as like an intimate date with yourself. So,
I love that.
which can be intimidating for some people naturally, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But we try to create an environment here that's very just open, welcoming, safe, secure, empowering, trusting that you can do the work that you need to do at the rate that you are able to do it at.
That's awesome.
That's how we try to bring the float to people anyways. Yeah.
And you play Kundalini music when people are waking up out of the float.
We do. Sonatum
Play
Chorus.
Sonatum Car.
Oh man.
Yeah,
that-
I love her.
She's been our wake up song since day one.
Really?
Yep.
And it never gets old.
Nick
It feels
Trainer.
so good.
Nick Trainer brought her in
Yeah,
here.
no,
Oh, I love Nick.
I don't
Yeah.
like. I don't like waking up to anything other than that.
I
It's
agree.
it's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. Kundalini, that's a whole other part of Kundalini yoga that's so beautiful.
This
Is
is-
all the beautiful mantras. And yeah, on my new album, people can check out. It's mostly Kundalini mantras.
Cool.
Wild Horses on Instagram or on iTunes or Amazon or Spotify or wherever music is sold or streamed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's your podcast on?
What's it on? It's
Yeah.
about music.
No, sorry.
um,
Like where can they find it? What platforms?
it's on iTunes. It's just on iTunes, I believe.
iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now, it's just on iTunes.
And it's called
The By Urban Yogi.
the Bio Urban Yogi.
Yeah.
Cool. And So I was jumping back to Kundalini. Do they use traditionally like instruments and gongs? And
Yeah,
stuff like
they
that?
love the gongs. The gongs are supposed to be very healing for the nervous system during Shavasana.
Right.
They even do whole
Yeah.
classes where it's just like gongs for like 90
Gong
minutes.
sound baths.
Yeah, sound baths.
Yeah.
Like, remember Zizen, the
Yes.
guy who did our wedding?
Yeah.
We did a sound workshop at his place, and he had a giant gong, and it was
They're
next level.
incredible.
Like,
Yeah.
It's just
They dissolve you.
The sound.
They do. If you let it, you have to
The
just
sound
surrender
went
into it.
through every part of my
Yeah.
body. I was in the sound. It was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to describe it other than being completely homogenous with it, but
Yep.
incredible.
It's
I
so
had-
good, eh?
I had a sound experience at a Kundalini class I did, or workshop. It was a gong bath, but at the
Nice.
end, here's my mistake. This is a very different time for me. I ate a whole pot cookie before I went to it
There we
on an
go.
empty
To
stomach.
the sound bath?
Yes, purposely. And they were playing with some sort of speaker technology. Again, this might be the cookie coming in, but I was convinced
possibly.
that, because this is before I knew more about just energy in general, and I was convinced, like, because I felt the dissolving, and I got scared. I
It
didn't
can
want
be
to.
scary. The gongs scare people.
I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to let myself completely go.
Interesting.
And
So it was because of like the surrender factor. You didn't surrender.
yes, well,
And the gong can scare people, even if they're not on pot cookies. People sometimes freak out and start crying.
Well, there's a weird resonance with that.
It's
thing.
so powerful.
It's really
so
powerful.
powerful. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was convinced that I was getting like indoctrinated at that time. I'm like, they're hypnotizing.
Oh, you thought it
me.
was like a cult.
Something's happening because,
It reminds me of that story.
and
in
so I pulled
Zoolander.
myself back, and I'm so disappointed because I was going.
Come to my class.
When is
Yeah,
your
I'm
class?
coming.
If people go to willblunderfield.ca and then it says schedule,
Do you teach at Yoga
I
West?
teach. I sub there right now.
Cool.
And then I sub at the Dharma Temple. Those are kind of the two Kundalini places right now in
Awesome.
in Vancouver. I teach like at Steve Nash. I teach at Hollyburn Country Club. I teach for the North Shore Disability Resource Center, Kundalini
Nice.
Yoga to young adults who have autism and Down syndrome. So it's really for everybody. And it's like I find that it's a style of yoga that everybody can benefit from if they get past the weirdness of it.
Yes.
Like the turbans and the weird chanting and stuff. It's like, just try it, have an experience and see if it makes you feel good.
I definitely went back. In fact,
Nice.
with my fiance, we went before we got engaged to a workshop, and oh my gosh, it was the most bizarre experience, but just cool because I forget what
Was
the
this
exact,
Yoga West?
Yes,
Oh, nice.
and I forget what the exact. I don't know if it was. I don't know if you call it a formal mantra, but we had to repeat this line over and over and over again, literally for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
and it was something ridiculous. Like it was just
Like hara?
No, it was like English words.
Oh, like I bless myself, I
But
I
it was,
am or something.
but what we were saying, I don't remember what we were saying. It's something like, oh no, sorry, this is what it was. We had to make kissing noises for 30 minutes. Literally, we're going for 30 minutes.
Is that a thing?
straight?
Yeah, because like some of the things are like to just get you out of your like
That's
thinking
right.
mind.
It's
and
just like, let
do-
it go.
Like sometimes they
Yep.
make you like act like a monkey for
Right.
like 11
You know what?
minutes.
That's why I want to try ecstatic dance.
Just like
Because
let it
yeah.
go.
because Aubrey Marcus talks about how he'll use ecstatic dance because it becomes very strange. Like you'll start moving your body in different ways,
Yes.
and then you'll get self-conscious and be like, "Oh, I shouldn't be moving my hips this way," or "What are people going to think if they see me moving like this?" Or if I'm dancing. So
Right.
it becomes this weird process. Like,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
doing this thing that could make you self-conscious, but really, who gives a shit?
It's
if you're
such a
making
good
it right?
exercise, though, to
Yeah.
have that, because you really start to become aware of like, whoa, I'm totally blocking myself.
Right.
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 So,
Get you out of
Yeah.
out of the ego and into the body.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and they do
Yeah.
that. They do that stuff a lot in Kundalini, I find.
They do. There's like a lot of different sort of weird movements or unexpected sounds that you make or mantras. There's even a style. There's a part of Kundalini yoga called white tantric. Red tantric is sexual. White tantric is just prana, life force, sharing
Yeah.
between you and another. And it's like 200 or 300 people lined up in rows. There's a man and a woman across from each other, or
eye
more
gazing?
masculine essence. And there's eye gazing,
Yeah.
and you're singing. You're like looking into each other's eyes and like holding your hands at weird angles for like 32 minutes. Then you get like a 10-minute break. Then you do the other side. And the Yogi Bhajan, they recorded him doing like thousands of these, so they do a different one each time. It comes to Vancouver once a year. I think it's on like December 2nd at the Unity Church on 41st and Oak. But it's so amazing. They say it's like the equivalent of doing like 10 years of therapy in an 8-hour day, because you're like forced to just look into somebody else's eyes And I used to have a problem with eye contact. Not anymore after that.
Right.
It's really powerful.
You have
Well, in the men's work, we do eye gazing sometimes.
Oh, nice.
So that's why maybe our eye contact is
it's better than the average bear,
Yeah.
I would say.
I personally found that the more personal work I've done on myself along these lines and how we've been discussing, the more comfortable I've been doing eye gazing and connecting with it. And it's on
eye gazing.
it's really important though.
It's weird at first. It's really weird at first, but then you get into it and you're like, well, why is it so weird?
Why is it weird? It feels
what
good.
I mean? What's wrong with it, really?
But there's something deep about it, though.
Well, there is deep because there's two things about it. Like one, if you're really making eye contact, it can come across as predatorial. So it's like if you're like staring somebody down, it can be like a threat or how they're interpreting it. There's different ways people
or it could make
contact.
somebody cry.
There's a lot of
you're being seen.
There's a lot of stuff with eye contact for sure. So it's like
and in our society we're not really allowed to feel that much publicly, especially. So maybe people are like, oh, like they're holding this stuff in, but it's like, okay, let it happen. You might start to cry. You might start to feel like a creep. You might start to feel all these different things, but just let it flow.
But then you do get that oxytocin generated through eye gazing.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's the love hormone.
It goes through like a process of going through lots of different layers, but then ultimately you get to a surrendering. Like it's like, well, this is what I'm doing, and this is the exercise. So you just keep doing it, and you'll come to this different state again, right? And you kind of. I think that's where the kind of spiritual traditions go with it.
It does become very shroomy in my experience.
Oh yeah,
you
get a lot of
and
you get I got a lot of like their face starts to morph.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the other one too.
I got that with my partner too.
Yeah.
And then she fell asleep. I had to like pull her. I was like, wake up. I want to look
We're
at
not
your eyes.
done.
We're not finished. We got 3 more hours left.
Yeah.
That's it. We're almost there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to get out there today?
You get my album on iTunes.com/Will Blunderfield.
Check it out, people.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
your main hub is. Do you have your own website?
Yeah, willblunderfield.ca.
Cool.
Willblunderfield.com is not me. Somebody bought out that. I don't know who they are, but they're posting nice things, but it's not me.
Oh. Check how much that website's worth.
Yeah, I'll check and see. Maybe I can buy it back. I don't know. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on the show, and I really love you guys.
Love you too, man.
Awesome.
Known you guys for 8 years now.
Long time.
Or no longer, 10 years, because 2008.
For like 10,
for 8.
10 years.
About 10 years, yeah.
Crazy.
Amazing. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
That was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I'm inspired to try Kundalini yoga.
Oh, yeah. It's a trip.
Come anytime. Get high on your own supply.
I'm down for that.
Cool.
Yay.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for always joining us, coming right to the end as well. We really appreciate it. Anything you can do, like, comment, share, even just talk about it in a conversation with people. Like, hey, I heard this guy, Will, he does Kundalini. He's really crazy. That's awesome. Do that. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anything really helps us, and we do appreciate you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, and people can follow me on Instagram, W Blunderfield. That's kind of like my main hub of social media.
Yeah, me too. I've reduced on Instagram too.
Yeah, it's just easier, right?
Yep. Instagram.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get on it.
Get on it, Mike. You're not on the Instagram train enough.
Cool. And anything else, Andy?
Andy'sRemba.com, floathouse.ca, mantalks.com, vancouverreal.tv, mindfulmass.org.
Nice.
Lots of love to you guys.
That's it. Until next time.
To whatever is.
To whatever is.